Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello everybody at home and welcome to House of Stallone with your Houselights crew, John Mills and Darren Moser. I am your co-host Tristan Riddell and we are talking about Rocky 3. This is the second entry into our Stallone house, and because we skipped Rocky 1 because he wrote it but he didn't direct it, and so we're able to kind of dive deep into what makes Stallone a director this week, because we get some real good comparison, because last week it was a comparison to somebody else, but now we get to compare him to himself, and I am very, very excited to talk about Rocky 3 this week. And Darren, this was your first time watching Rocky 3, is that right?
Yes, this is the first time watching just this last weekend.
Now, you haven't seen any of the Rocky movies, and you still did you have a chance to watch Rocky 1 at all, or are you still going forward?
I knew enough about Rocky 1, and they honestly did a great recap in the beginning of Rocky 2. I didn't feel the need to rewatch it all the way. But I mean, from what I'm gathering, it's very similar to Rocky 2. It's just him winning for the first time. But yeah, no, this one, I kind of knew that like Mr. T was in it because I knew he was in one of them, and I thought it was this one. But yeah, and I had to look it up afterwards. I'm like, is this the song? Is this the movie where Eye of the Tiger like became a thing, or was it a thing before? I'm like, oh, it was, because they're saying it in the movie, like it's a special thing. I'm like, I think this is the movie that this song came from. But yeah, it was a really fun first time.
I remember watching this with a roommate of mine, and when the high school band is playing a band version of Eye of the Tiger, he kind of looks at me, he's like, is Eye of the Tiger diegetic to the Rocky universe? I was like, oh, just wait until Creed makes an appearance. John Mills, this is your, how many times have you seen this film?
I pity the fool that didn't start this podcast with a Rocky impersonation like we did last week. Oh, my prediction for this podcast,
that it was poor.
Yeah,
you told me it was a poor
You come
intro.
back.
Come on. Come on. You come back. You didn't win the first time. You come back to get the title
That's
the second
true.
time. Have you learned nothing from watching Rocky 2 before this?
You didn't give him
man?
a belt last time, John. That's why.
Come
you
on.
didn't feel you had anything
Maybe
to
when we
defend.
get to Rocky 4, I'll bring in the impression again. But just for that comment, John, you get to tell everybody where they can find our other episodes.
Oh, well, you can find our other episodes by, you can go over to thenerdparty.com and you can look up Houselights over there. You can go to thenerdparty.com/contact and go ahead and drop us a line and let us know some other wacky combinations of directors and works and characters that you might want us to review. And of course, go out there on your social medias. We pity the fools that don't find us on Twitter at Join Nerd Party, and look for The Nerd Party over on Instagram and Facebook. Trading blows with reality, taking them out. Got the Eye of the Tiger. Yeah. Huh. Come on. I love this movie. I'm just going to come right out there and say it.
Well, I couldn't hide it last week. I know that so for those of you listening, we were talking about doing a different director before we moved on to Stallone, and which we still might do, might move forward with. But we were just like, okay, well, we could do this director, but we'd be with this director for like 8 weeks. Okay, well, I guess we could do it. Well, yeah, none of us were like really gung-ho, and I can't remember who suggested it, but we said we could do the House of Stallone, and both John and I were just like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
I don't have a specific memory of seeing Rocky 3 for the first time, but there are two very important things about Rocky 3 that will always put it in a very special place in my heart. One is Mr. T. It is impossible to overstate the impact that the casting of Mr. T made on American culture. Okay, this is a guy that then went on to the A-Team. He had his own cartoon. He had a cereal. He had action figures. Mr. T was a pillar of 1980s American cinema and culture. Absolutely just brilliant casting on the part of Stallone, our director. And additionally, when you look at Rocky 3, you see Rocky slot in the character of the franchise. This is the moment where Rocky goes from, we have a legitimate gear shift from, we're making this big cultural statement movie, to we are giving the audience a popcorn. Popcorn movie is thrown around as a pejorative, but this is a movie where a director comes in and says, I know why you love this, and I am going to give you every last ever-loving moment that you want in this movie. I know why you're sitting in that seat. I know what's going to get you to move. And on top of that, Rocky 3 is an important moment because you see a director get wise to the music video trend that is just starting to come in, and the importance of montage and soundtrack choices. It's not enough to have a score. Now, you got to have that hit song. You got to have that really slick, catchy thing that you can sell. And Rocky 3 does it better than just about any other movie from the era, because Eye of the Tiger became the cultural footprint song. You start that guitar riff, everybody knows what is going on with that. And so
we may not know all the words.
Spoiler.
Like if we try to sing the song, like the fight red challenge, but we know the chorus. We all know it. We all know it.
Friggin' love that song. But yes, Rocky 3
really
I think
interesting
is
Stallone originally wanted a different song. He wanted Queen's "Another One Bite the Dust."
He would have been wrong.
He would have been wrong,
Well,
and
that
he
would have
lucked
been
out.
That would have been a mistake.
It totally it would not have worked.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that working in like a Shaun of the Dead movie, or something like that.
Maybe.
But it's not the same uppity beat that Eye of the Tiger. Like people work out to Eye of the Tiger. People go on runs to Eye of the Tiger. Like that's just, it gets you jazzed.
Yeah, it's been an anthem for 40 years.
But also in terms of like even just Queen music. Like I could see "We Will Rock You." I could see there are a whole "Hammer to Fall."
I mean, Knight's Tale took that
things
to new heights, but yes.
True. But seriously, like there are many other Queen songs that are much better choices than "Another One Bites the Dust." So thank goodness that the director did not get exactly what he wanted at first and instead chose what he chose.
And speaking of casting Mr. T, and like in John, people who weren't around during that era or are a little younger and listeners and everything like that, like you cannot overstate the impact that Mr. T had in pop culture. Like just from being Mr. T, like it's not like, I don't know how to phrase it. He was a personality that was so unique that's what got him all these things. It wasn't Rocky. It wasn't the A-Team. It was just him being Mr. T. Yeah, he got exposure from those things, but like people weren't just like, oh my God, it's Clubber Lang. Like, no, it's Mr. T.
I agree with you. I think Mr. T would have been a thing without Rocky still, but he became like it launched him into the stratosphere. He didn't become
I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mean,
I know,
I just tried to say that like the character of Clubber Lang did not overshadow Mr. T is what I was trying to say.
Very true. And something I do want to go back to is what I forgot to mention is that Mr. T teamed up with Hulk Hogan, Terry Hulk Hogan, who plays Thunderlips in this movie. What a snapshot!
That was out of left field. I did not expect Hulk Hogan as Thunderlips. I mean, maybe Hulk Hogan as Hulk Hogan to show up. That sequence, oh my gosh! I did not know what was going on.
There was still a willful lie that people told to themselves that wrestling might be real at the time. Nowadays, we laugh about it. We're like, oh yeah, of course wrestling's fake. But back then, people were not really ceding ground on that one. And so Rocky 3 also winds up being a time capsule of that moment when pro wrestling, specifically the WWF, as led by Vince McMahon, suddenly became a thing in America. Like there had always been pro wrestling and everything, but thanks to Hulk Hogan's appearance here, that also is that little spark that lights and gets Mr. T involved and leads to all of these things, WrestleMania and all of that stuff, because Mr. T became a pro wrestling figure after this too.
Well, Vincent McMahon fired Hulk Hogan for appearing in this movie. And then 2 years later, Vince McMahon hired him back and then, started the whole WrestleMania thing and everything like that. So it's crazy how there was blowback initially, but then Vince McMahon was smart enough to realize, okay, no. Like, that was the wrong move.
Indeed.
Well, when you talk about wrestling, like everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is. Like even if you aren't a wrestling person, his name, his look, just like it's one of the few wrestlers. Like there's a handful, but he's definitely one of the main ones where you know them. Like I'd say maybe like Dwayne Johnson, like The Rock is, and maybe like I could probably count 5 that are like pop culture enough that the average person knows who they are, even if they aren't a wrestling fan. And Hulk Hogan is definitely one of them. I mean, he was in movies, with Mr. Mom or all of Commando, Suburban Commando, all that stuff.
Yeah,
What a guy.
Yeah, No Holds Barred. That's the one you want to avoid. That was the pro wrestling movie. Yeah, never mind that one. But Rocky 3, I mean.
Now, like, going back to Mr. T, one thing that I was interested to find out is that
we
Stallone,
never left Mr. T. Never left. He's always here.
Stallone was at a fight, and I can't remember for the life of me who was actually the fighter. But he was at a fight, and he wanted to go backstage and meet the fighter, and Mr. T was the fighter's bodyguard. And he's like, hey, I'm Sylvester Stallone. I want to see what's his name. And Mr. T's like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a celebrity. You're not coming back here. And so Stallone said, he's like, okay, fair enough. And he leaves. And then I think a little bit time goes on, and there was like a bouncer fight or something like that, like where like bouncers got together and like put on an exhibition. And like Mr. T was just throwing people around like with complete ease. And Stallone went up to him afterwards and said, like, I want to put you in Rocky 3. And like, it's just like, hey, do you remember me? Like the guy you wouldn't let in? Like, well, I want to put you in a movie. And apparently on set, they were just absolutely simpatico. Like the two of them were as thick as thieves and like had a lot in common, like came from really humble beginnings. And some of the producers wanted to give Mr. T acting lessons. And Stallone is just like, leave him alone. Let him do his thing. He's like, he needs to be as uncut as possible. Like, this is the personality that I need to bring in the movie, not something else. And you just got to really admire that foresight to see that, like, Mr. T's personality was going to shine through.
And that's the wisdom of a director, is saying, no, this is, I can work with this. This is what I need to work with. This is not the producer thinking about, okay, well, I need to refine and all of that sort of thing. It's to your point, it's that embrace of knowing why you cast them in the first place. Why would you try to control that? Like that,
right?
That would be just insane.
Mr. T, he has a rhythm. He has a rhythm to his speech. Like he has a rhythm to his acting. Like yeah, no, he's not going to be winning any Oscars. Like he's not the dramatic actor. He's not the person you're going to come to give that monologue. But like he's that presence, the way that he presents himself is exactly who Clubber Lang needed to be. He was the perfect antagonist for this film because he had none of the charm of Apollo Creed, and he shouldn't have, because we needed somebody on the opposite side of the spectrum. It was kind of, John, you're going to absolutely hate that I'm going to bring this
Probably.
up. But it's kind of like some of the bad guys in Highlander, where you have, like in the first one, you have the Kurgan, who even though he's like a bruiser, he respects the rules. He doesn't fight on religious ground, in a sacred space, holy ground. Thank you. But then I think you get to like the second or third one, and those bad guys just don't even care. They show no respect, and so like you have that dichotomy of the antagonists. And I know I went a long way for that metaphor, and it might have been deep down just to make you angry, but that's kind of what I see.
And you succeeded, which is good. It's always good to throw me off my game that way. But I can tell you that it's a great point, because again, this is the wisdom of a writer director coming to it and saying, I can't give people the same beat. I've given them Apollo twice. I need to give something so radically different from Apollo that that people can draw a clear distinction between what part of the journey that they're on. And I think what I'm going to throw back at you guys is, I think if this movie has a flaw, it is that Mr. T is such a force and the camera is so in love with him, and Stallone does such a good job of capturing his charisma as a director that a very emotional arc with Mickey might get overshadowed a little bit. Not Mickey's death, but what Mickey has done to sort of accidentally undercut Rocky's confidence. Do you guys see that? Do you see the Mr. T-ism of it undercutting that aspect of it at all?
Yeah, I think that happens a little bit. The thing that was most interesting to me, as far as like the non-Mr. T parts of the story, was Apollo, because I knew like, oh, there's a movie called Creed and that's Apollo's son, and like I knew roughly that's coming down the line, but I was like, why would Rocky trade Apollo's son? Like, he hates the guy, like he's put him through the ringer through all this stuff. But after this movie, I'm like, oh no, they're buds now. Like they have the professional courtesy. I love the very ending where they're like, we want to see him fight. We don't actually see him fight. But this movie made a lot of sense and laid a lot of groundwork for why those future movies will now make sense, because they're now on the same team. They're not, because Apollo's not. When Apollo at most was the antagonist, he wasn't ever the bad guy. He didn't like spike his water and try to kill him or something really nefarious. No, he's a boxer. He's his opponent.
Or insult his wife.
Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mr. T was running on that one.
Yeah.
I remember
that's the kayfabe that gets him the the pro wrestling job. Like that's pro wrestler talk right there. But that scene is, Darren, what you're speaking to, that's what's so beautiful, is that scene makes you hate him. You want to see Rocky beat the snot out of him. And it's like, even though like intellectually you're like, yeah, no, Rocky should just retire and just be done with it. But then Mr. T is able to cross that line as Clubber Lang so convincingly in that scene. You're like, yeah, Rocky, go. Come on. Push him down the steps,
and he loses. And it's nice because it's Rocky, but it's still it's the Rocky movie are still finding a way to tell a new story, which is kind of amazing, because it could very easily be basically the first one again. Rocky has a long journey and gets back in shape and punches the meat in the ice box and then wins in the end. And like they could have given us that exact same thing, but they didn't. They had, instead, you had the losing at the beginning, and then the whole, like you said, John, the whole subplot with his trainer, like that can't be discounted, because that's a major part of Rocky and how he's progressing as a person. And he has all the things in the beginning. Like, he's got the house, he's got the car, he's got the kid. Like, it's like, oh, Rocky finally won. Like, he's got everything. He's very 80s with that haircut and those suits. But I love the journey that this took us on. Like, it was, I don't know how they keep doing it, but they keep telling new stories with this pretty much the exact same formula as the other two movies.
And Adrian gets the speech. Everybody gets, as you go through each one, somebody gets the speech with Rocky. They get the inspirational moment. And Adrian breaking him down and getting him to admit that he's afraid, and then basically saying, you know what you're afraid of, but you can get out. Like, she has that moment with him of challenging him. And it gets back to that whole thing we talked about with Rocky 2. This is a marriage functioning as a partnership. They actually are shouting at each other this time, but Adrian digs in and won't let Rocky quit. She proves once again she's his spirit, his heart, his backbone, but she gets a great scene to do it in. This isn't the typical testosterone speech that we see. This is, man and a woman interacting, and she is giving back, she's reflecting back to him and making him be honest with himself. I love the scene on the beach where they have that argument, that back and forth, because it gets Rocky where he needs to go, and it's from a character that you wouldn't expect that exchange to come from. A lazier screenwriter would have given that to Apollo, not to Adrian.
That's interesting, and I think you're absolutely right that, like, yeah, that would have been Apollo's moment in another movie, like if this was done by somebody else, because I kept wondering, like, when I watched this the first time, like, why is Adrian with him for this? Like, why is she going to California? Like, why is she going to California? Why is she going to this crappy hotel? Why is she there at every single training session? I was like, she hasn't done that before. I was just like, and then when we get to the speech at the beach, I was like, oh, she was there the entire time just so that she could give this speech. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure that they wrote, like, I'm sure that they had that moment where they're like, we need this moment. We need Adrian to be there. Okay. And so I could just see Sylvester just going backwards with his typewriter saying, okay, I need to go back to this scene, say that somebody else is going to take care of the kid, and we're going to see her and Polly here at this moment. You can just feel it happening. This is not a criticism. I'm just saying that, like, it was a building block to get that moment so that she just didn't appear and just like fly, oh, Adrian's here. You know, like, she came to visit on this one day.
And it's all on the phone, which wouldn't have worked.
Something like that. I was joking with my wife where I said, I was just like, oh, if I was doing this kind of training and I said, it was like, this is where we're going to stay, you'd go, no, this is where you're going to stay. I'm going to go to this hotel.
What'd you guys think of the Polly bit in the beginning? Like, I don't know, that kind of felt a little out of place to me. I didn't know why we spent a ton of time with Polly at the beginning and getting, like, why he's feeling overshadowed and no one, like, I guess I didn't quite get what, like, because really over the whole rest of the movie, that really doesn't come into play at all.
I think it's important, personally, that Paulie gets this moment, because I think this is a Paulie character building moment. Paulie is pseudo comic relief-ish, not comic, but like he's sort of dopey sidekick. He gets an actual character beat in this one, and it humanizes him in a large way. This is how a guy would feel like, this type of guy would feel like this, where it's like, hey, I'm the one that got you here. I'm the one that, you should be thanking me. And Rocky has two great moments where he challenges Paulie and gives Paulie this wonderful moment to grow as a person. The first one is when we're having the argument in the parking garage, and basically Rocky's like, all you need to do is ask me for a job. And can I have a job? Yeah, sure. Okay. It's demonstrating that whole thing of sometimes if you just ask for what you want instead of sitting there and stewing in the background, Paulie could have saved himself and everybody else all of this anguish if he'd simply been honest about what he wanted. And that's actually kind of an interesting life lesson. And then there's another interesting life lesson because Paulie's flat out racist in this movie. And there's a moment where they're in the gym and he's gesturing at the majority black population around him. And he goes, I don't like these people. And Rocky looks at him and says, well, maybe they don't like you either. And just like walks off. He doesn't turn it into an argument. And Paulie has this moment. He goes, what'd I do to them? And it's like, it's treated pseudo comically, but at the same time, this is a fool like Paulie having that realization of, well, I didn't do anything. And like, you can see that's going to start the gears turning.
The wheels
like,
are turning,
oh wait,
yeah.
Right. They didn't do it. They didn't do anything to me. I shouldn't have a problem with people like, that are different than me. And that's an important growth moment for that character. And it's just in that tiny little beat.
That's true. I forgot the later beats with the training part that he does come back around to that. I was only remembering the beginning. I'm like, is Paulie in because he's watching the kid. I'm like, is he in the rest of the movie? But
while you're not wrong, John, I really I do like that moment because it shows the absurdity of racism in that moment, like from Paulie's perspective. The beginning, while it's a great character moment, I don't know if I think it was a necessary story moment. It felt
fair.
Like to have it at the beginning, like the very beginning, after the montage felt a little weird and stilted. It was kind of like you have the recap, then you have a montage, like where a lot changes. Like, good Lord, a lot changes in 2 or 3 years of his life. And like he's become a completely different person. And it was to give credit to Stallone, this moment of showing Paulie, and I might be convincing myself here, but like it was a way to illustrate how different their lives have become. Because, you know, in Rocky 2, Rock was selling his car to Paulie for ends meet. And now in Rocky 3, Paulie's begging for a job. I think this moment would have been better just a little bit later on, and maybe compacted a little bit more.
Completely fair point. Absolutely completely fair point. Or even worked more into the montage in the beginning.
Yeah, I could see that. I think you talking about it and me talking about it out loud kind of convinced me, that gave it a little bit more value in my mind. So yeah, I think but that I think that's my main criticism, is that it was a weird note to start on. Especially because you had so much difference in the montage. Like, it's just so crazy how different Rock is from 2nd to 3, because like he's in bed in a house that's better than his first apartment, but he can barely read, and he can't do a commercial where he's acting like a caveman, but not in the right way, apparently. And then in the third one, he has this empire that he's built, and we're just like, oh, we're skipping over the empire building. Like, it was like, I'm not saying Rocky 3 needed to have that. It was just like, it was such a huge jump then to go straight to Paulie.
I acknowledge that. I agree with you that the Paulie bit a little bit too long, could have worked differently. But the montage itself in the beginning, I love, because I do consider it this is a smart director. People don't have the patience for everything I want to show them. So I'm going to show it to them as quickly as possible. And in terms of the creation of the montage and how it goes, the two editors, Don Zimmerman and Mark Warner, I think do an excellent job with telling the story of you can turn the sound off and you can tell you're seeing that Rocky is having these fights that are a little too easy for him. And you see Clubber Lang watching him from the shadows, angry, beating the snot out of people. And you get that Mickey is watching Clubber Lang, and you can see in Mickey's face, oh, we got to avoid this guy at all. Like, Phil, you know, if I go a little George Lucas here, forgive me. Film, it's a visual medium. But like, seriously, this little montage.
It's like poetry.
Yeah, but it tells this entire story in an incredibly compact time. Yeah. And that is tremendously to its credit. And I think is Stallone being a smart director. And yes, acknowledging TV, music videos, Walkman, like, things are changing rapidly at this point in the 80s in terms of personal entertainment. This is the point where people's patience is starting to lessen. It doesn't exist now, but back then people had patience. But he could see the early cracks
back in my day.
So yeah, back in my day, we watched commercials and we liked them.
It's 100 minutes. It's a really fast movie.
Yeah, it's tight.
And I could see another director or someone being like, well, we got to show Rocky, like, right? No, montage. Just cover all that in the montage. Boom, boom, boom. And then it literally, the montage stops and it's like, and then in present day, Paulie is having financial troubles. And let's say, here we go. And that's the movie.
Oh, Darren, I can't wait for you to watch Rocky 4. I really can't wait for you to watch Rocky 4. Yeah. This is a tiny taste of where it's going.
At the final fight with Clubber Lang, like, you have Duke and Creed wearing the jackets, and it says Rocky on the back, and then you see Paulie, and his jacket says Paulie on the back. If that's not a microcosm of the character, like, Stallone just gets this character. He completely understands them, and his his place in the universe.
I didn't catch that, but I could totally see Paulie being like, well, my name's on my jacket, right? Like it's my jacket. It's like, no, we're on Rocky's team, but it's my jacket. It's like, fine, Paulie, you can have your name on your jacket.
You can see Rock just not caring. He's like,
okay, Paulie, you have your name. You have your name on your jacket. Yes, it's
You
your
have
jacket.
to have-
No one's going to take your jacket. It's got your name on it. It's good.
You have to have some sort of a sense of. Now I know nothing. I'm not saying anything, but you have to have sort of a sense, given Frank Stallone's expanded presence in this movie and in Sylvester's life by this point, that possibly he was drawing a little bit with Paulie. He was drawing a little bit on the his relationship with his brother Frank, in a sense, and using that not as a one-to-one, but as an inspiration for Paulie and Paulie's motivations in this movie. Just a little bit.
Well, Stallone, with the Rocky franchise, this is probably, I mean, you talked about this last episode, John, but that this is a very personal franchise to Stallone. Like, he created Rocky, he loves Rocky, he lives in this world, he knows the character, it's in his bones. And a lot of this, a lot of elements in the Rocky franchise are autobiographical. Now, like you said, it's not a one-to-one with a lot of things, it's just little pieces here and there. And by this time, when Rocky 3 came out, Stallone was a superstar, just an absolute mega superstar. And that's why in the montage at the beginning, like a lot of that is just taken from his life, like when he was on the Muppets, when he was at the Oscars, when he's walking red carpets, when he's doing like posters and photo shoots and everything like that. Like they just grabbed that from art, not all of it, but like a lot of it was taken from archival stuff.
Well, and didn't they actually make that statue? And it's like actually at the Philadelphia steps?
In fact, yes, they left it there as a gift after this movie because Philadelphia is a hellhole and needed something good to focus on.
Well, there's actually a lot more to that. Like there's a lot behind that story because they Stallone wanted to donate it to the museum, and the museum's like, go screw yourself. That's just a movie prop. We're a legitimate museum. And then they had to have some convincing, but then they took it down, and it was in storage for a few years. Then a kid got like 10,000 signatures to bring it back. Then it was at the base of the steps, and then I think it's someplace else. I don't know. Like it went back and forth for decades.
Yes,
which is a shame.
But as a DC Metro native, I hate the city of Philadelphia, and I stand by my comments.
Now, with this film, let's talk about. We talked a lot about Clubber Lang. We talked about, and we'll talk more about Creed. But I want to talk about Mickey and John. You touched on this a little bit. For people who don't understand or respect boxing that much, so much like I think the Rocky franchise really tries to show you that it's not just about who's stronger, it's not just who's faster. It is so much a mental game. Like there's a reason why there's these flamboyant characters talk bad about each other in the press. Is that they're trying to rile each other up. They're trying to get people to misstep. Now, if you're a manager whom you love and live with is having a heart attack and you're scared that he's going to die, and then you have to get into a ring with a monster, like that's going to affect your game. Like that's going to trip you up mentally. And I think, like I said, the Rocky movies really show that it's so much about mentality. And also, I saw a lot of parallels, and this is going to be funny because of Burgess Meredith being in the Batman, Adam West show, but I saw a lot of similarities between an Alfred and Batman type relationship, where, like Mickey says, like, you can't do it. We're not going to do this anymore. I'm leaving. This is the only way I can show you that you shouldn't do it. Like, we saw that in The Dark Knight. And it's that kind of relationship where the mentor is talking to the mentee and says, the only way that I can show you that you shouldn't do this is if I leave. And we've seen that a couple times throughout cinema. And I just really, really like this relationship. And I was sad to see it go after 3 movies, knowing that there was way more. But I think it was a great end to the character.
Well, the relationship of, the manager trainer and the boxer is a really complex and a really close one. And in a real world reflection, although Rocky exists before he really comes onto the scene, it's like Customato and Mike Tyson, right? There's a marked difference in Tyson, with Customato and afterward. There's a really marked difference in that influence on his life, and in terms of who gets him trained up to the point where he can be who he should be in terms of professional skill. And I think that the Mickey relationship, I think it's a beautiful moment that I mean, there's no indication in the first two movies that Mickey's Jewish, is there? But Stallone makes the decision to make him Jewish here. And I think that in and of itself is a beautiful thing, because in a sense, it's Rocky is basically the story of, an Italian-American fighter who comes up, and, everybody knows the Italian-American story through New York and all of that sort of thing, coming over and the establishment of the culture and all of that type of thing. And to have a conscious acknowledgement of another, immigrant minority story that's been very important to American culture simply by making Mickey Jewish, and acknowledging that there are other groups there that have not gotten, as much acknowledgement as they should, and that sort of thing. And I think it also, is just I'm trying not to overstate it, but by doing that ties in even to the little beat that Paulie gets, where, Rocky is calling out his attitude toward black people. And it's sort of, those wind up becoming two moments where Stallone's putting it in front of the audience, like, hey, you love Apollo, you love Mickey, right? Maybe you need to start loving people for who they are, from beginning to finish, sort of thing.
Which is a huge theme in the next one, which I can't wait to hear about, and Darren, for you to see. But yeah, apparently Stallone did that. It wasn't just like and I'm not saying you were saying this, but it wasn't just a whim. It was a very conscious decision to pay tribute to how many Jewish American boxing trainers there have been, and they go unrecognized. And so he thought that this would be a nice way to pay tribute to those people who don't get the glory. But there's been a huge demographic of Jewish American trainers, and it was a surprise to a lot of fans, but I think it definitely had that effect that you're talking about, John. Now, Darren, you talked about Creed, they're buddies now, they're on equal footing and everything like that. How did you feel about that arc overall? Like, how did you feel about the training arc? Like we've established that, Creed has his own motivations, that he's invested now, he's a good guy now. What did you think about his training methodology, going back to the basics, remaking him in a different image? What did you think about the relationship once the training started?
No, I think it was really good. Again, it's amazing how Rocky III is, again, essentially the same story in the broadest sense of, training, fight, the biggest brushstrokes, but it makes it fresh, and it makes it really fresh with Apollo, because And I totally bought that he had evolved as a character, because, again, we've established time has passed. He's obviously not bitter about it. He's still got a little bit of a chip, but that's because he's a boxer, and, there's that kind of professional, like, I could always take you even now. Like, there's always that element. But, yeah, I loved that montage and that training where it's totally different. Like, hey, we got to make you light on your feet. And it, in a way, it was never dismissive of like the previous training he had, but he's like, this is a different guy. You got to train different. You have to act different. You're not going to last 15 rounds with him. You got maybe 5 rounds. So you got to attack him like this. And it's really the strategy of boxing, that it's not just go in there and punch and hopefully you don't fall down first. Like, there's way more to that. And we get not since Lightning McQueen was training on a beach has there been an amazing beach training scene. No, but I loved all the Apollo stuff. That worked really well, and also seeing where he came from, it gave him just more. All the screen time we get of every character pumps into their character, into their story. Nothing's wasted.
John, how did you feel about the Creed training material?
It's quite frankly, it's a surprising choice, and I think that's what makes it such a great choice. Is after Rocky and Rocky 2, the last person you would expect to come in as Rocky's hero, as his savior, would be Apollo. They fought. Rocky eventually won. Apollo's whole career, his whole reputation ended because Rocky Balboa entered his life. And it would be completely believable that he would retire and be like, I don't want anything to do with that. But it makes Apollo super interesting as well, because this gets to the idea of honor between fighters and respect. Apollo knows he was beat, and he has to live with that. But it doesn't make him hate Rocky. It makes him respect Rocky, because Rocky did what others could not do, which was take him down. And it's not this, and so it's not a hatred. It's a respect. And seeing Rocky get taken down, undoubtedly to his eye, by him, like Rocky defeats himself essentially by not being ready for Clubber Lang, and to come in and it's so incredibly honest for that guy to come in and say, no, that's not the Rocky Balboa that beat me. If you're going to lose to Clubber Lang, I want him to fight the Rocky Balboa I had to fight. And I know how to get you there, because I know what it looks like to have you beat me. And I refuse to believe what they did. Apollo did hit that point a couple of times in the movie, that the Eye of the Tiger was very necessary.
A couple of times.
Once or twice or twice.
Once or twice or three or four or 5 times.
You have to watch it a few times to really pick up on the idea of the Eye of the Tiger being
it's important. Subtle. I almost didn't catch it, though, the first few.
Yeah, it's almost like he's whispering it in the background. You don't really pick up on it at
And
first.
when he gives him his colors, he gives him his shorts to wear. Like, that's
Beautiful.
A cool moment, and you're like, okay, man, yeah, here comes Rocky. And yeah, it's just, man, Rocky movies, because you get, here's a franchise so far where you have an amazing husband-wife team, and the way they treat each other and the way they support each other. You have, opposition that respects you, and it's like, man, like but it's just a guy's story of a boxer. It's so simple, but they tell it so well.
They do. And because we've been sitting here having a love fest with the movie, and, we talked about a little bit of a problem in the beginning with, the way Paulie's arc is, wedged, not wedged in, but like the way it works into the story, and maybe it could have been handled better, even though it pertains and everything. I will say that one of the things about Rocky 3 that bothers me is in the final fight, that Rocky's tactic turns into, just hit me as many times as you can till you get tired, and then I'll fight back. As somebody who paid some attention to boxing in the past, that's the point where it really starts to lose its grip on reality for me, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, this just does not, this is not, like, I get what you're going for. I get that it's pumping the audience up. I love the way it's edited and everything, but I'm sitting there and it's asking too much of my suspension of disbelief to sit there and say, so your tactic is to have this guy that knocked the ever-living S out of you to keep hitting you, because it's, like, if anything, it's a pro wrestling type of thing, because that became Hulk Hogan's bit in his matches, was he would get beaten down and then he'd get charged up and Hulkamania would come up, loosen him, and then he'd turn it around at the last second. It's a very pro wrestling sort of vibe to it. And I would say that it's one of those things where you have to consciously decide to go along with that in the final fight.
Yeah, that's a big moment that is really cool, but it asks too much of the audience, because it goes against its premise. And I think that's what really detracts for me, is that if you establish your premise, then stick with it, because we see him get. This is, I think, the first and only time in the series that we see Rock KO'd. Like that's it. Like he is knocked out early. He's knocked out in the second round. Like he's destroyed by this guy. And I don't care if your mental game is off or not. Like Rocky was known for being able to take a punch and just keep coming. And that's fine. That's great. Like that's the character. But you cannot establish that Clubber Lang can knock Rock out in the second round. And then when we do a rematch, he's just like, oh, I just got to withstand the hits this time? Okay, I'll just have a different attitude.
Withstand the hits. Okay, that's what I wasn't doing right last time. That's why I got... No.
Yeah, but I did like that he was playing a mental game with him. Like he would put his hand on top of his head and egg him on and everything like that. Like I that was a different tactic where Rocky was saying, he's like, no, I'm gonna wear him out. But you could have mixed it a little bit better with the Apollo training, because the Apollo training was definitely trying to make him as quick as possible. Like he lost a lot of weight. Like the dude there was 40 pounds difference between the two of them. Is that even legal in boxing? But he had Stallone had a 2.9 fat percentage for that final fight. That's insanity. Like he's just pure muscle at 191 pounds. And it's just lead into the quickness. Like at the beginning, they showed him starting strong with being as fast as he is, and just wearing Clubber Lang out a little bit, as early as possible. They established that, but then they just kind of abandoned that premise for the dramatics towards the end.
I think they could have just choreographed it better. More body blows, more misses, and just mix in a few more of both of those, and the fight just goes a lot better from that asking too much of me perspective. Now, the thing is, it's so well paced, and it does, it's infectious, man. Like it's just that music and the way that it's paced and the way that Stallone is like, come on. Like that's where it succeeds, is these movies are about appealing to the emotional part of you. And so when I'm sitting here and giving this intellectual, I give that intellectual criticism of it here while I'm talking to you. While I'm watching the movie, I'm sitting there, throwing my popcorn in the air.
Get him, yeah. Rocky, yeah. That's all we care about.
Yeah, he can't knock you down this time. You got the eye of the tiger, baby. That sort of thing.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yes.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's so accurate. Like we're sitting here, picking apart and analyzing film, but when you're in the moment, you're very much
when I was last in the cinema, when they went to fisticuffs in the third round, I was unsure if the pacing was quite what it should have been.
Now, speaking of hoity-toity stuff, the cinematography on this one, I didn't really like it. When I watched this the first time, I was like, this is really different from the first two. It feels lazier. It doesn't feel like it's shot like a Rocky movie. It just felt really odd. And then when I saw it again, yesterday or 2 days ago, I felt the same way. I was just kind of like, I don't really dig this. I don't dig this cinematography. But then I read up on it, and Stallone did it on purpose, where he shot loose, and he shot kind of a verite style, and he wanted it to feel voyeuristic. He wanted it to feel like you were a fly on the wall watching this, because he became a celebrity at this point. And being a celebrity means that your privacy kind of goes out the window. And that's why he shot it that way. I love the reasoning. I think that's really artistic, and it shows that Stallone is a fantastic director who has a vision. I just don't enjoy that vision for this movie. Now, what do you guys think of the cinematography? Did it stick out to you? Am I alone in this?
No, I agree with you. And I think that if you really want to look at a microcosmic example of where it doesn't particularly work, is in fact the beach running scenes. because there are moments where they're, especially even when they're jumping around and Rocky beats them and they're thrilled because it shows that Rocky's training is complete. You're ready to leave Dagobah, and they're jumping around and hugging each other. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait, what, why is the camera not come on, just lock off for a second and let him dance. Stop doing this. Like, it gets frustrating. There are moments where it works to its advantage. Like, they show up in the slums of LA, and, to start the training and everything. It feels authentic to there. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a film language communicating to me that I'm in a rough and tumble area and it's less polished. But when I'm at the mansion, when I'm going through certain things, the locked off stuff belongs. There are certain shots even on the steps when he's confronting Clubber Lang, where I would like the camera pulled back a little bit and looking at things a little bit differently. I agree with you. The reasoning is strong, and I think that if this movie did not have the power of the charisma of certain actors in it, namely Mr. T, Stallone himself, I think Burgess Meredith is great. I think Carl Weathers is great. I think all the performances are great. I think that Stallone proves that he's a director who can get good performances out of people. And I think that if he wasn't able to get those performances, I would harp on this photography a lot more than I am right now.
Yeah, there was a few times maybe it was the first fight or the second, I can't remember which, but like I could fully notice someone with like a little Bolex on the ring side shooting it, and then like 2 seconds later it cut to that angle. And again, I know it's supposed to be like, oh yeah, they're filming, but it felt like I could just see the camera, and it didn't feel like an in-universe camera. It felt like I saw the grip running across the stage, and it was a little jarring.
Fair point.
All the
Absolutely
Rocky
fair
movies, this one did the worst job of hiding cameras at the fights. I think, like, I saw one person say, like, oh, you could argue that they were like filming a documentary or something like that. But like Darren, like you said, but then they cut to that angle of the camera that you just saw.
And it doesn't have like a grain to it or a feel like, oh, and that's the news camera. And you feel like, no, it felt like go to camera 2. And I'm curious how long the fights took to film, because that was a big thing in the last movie. Was it like, 8 months to do the big end fight? I wonder if this one was a little bit sped up as far as time to film,
I think they filmed them back to back. That's all that I know about it, is that they filmed it back to back to kind of do it as quick as possible. But one thing about the camera work that Darren, that you were talking about, that really stuck out to me, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it when movies do this, because in Rocky 2, they did a good job of, like, when Creed was watching footage of the fight, it was a wide angle of the ring. When he was preparing for the rematch, it was a wide angle of the ring that we didn't see in the movie. But in Rocky 3, like, they were watching archive footage, and the camera would have had to have been in the fight with them in order to get that angle. And you're like, dude, come on. Like, don't use that shot for when you're reviewing footage. It's just stuff like that, like, where ultimately it doesn't matter, but it's little stuff like that kind of takes you out of it. And I think Rocky 3 out of all of them kind of does this the worst.
And Darren, I'm glad you brought up, and Tristan, you followed up on with the fight photography, given everything that we know about how Stallone absolutely labored over that fight at the end of Rocky 2. It's disappointing that he didn't labor that way over these. And I think the difference is clear right there. And I think that's probably attributable to the fact that in Rocky 2, he was probably hyper conscious that if it didn't work, his directing career was over. Whereas now that he's got that victory under his belt and his career is starting to really take off, because if you look at his filmography, Rocky 3 is right at, like, Rocky 2 happens, it proves he's not a fluke. And then all of a sudden, Sylvester Stallone's in his filmography in the 1980s is packed. It is insanely packed. And I think that's the difference that you see, is this is a guy who's more focused on time and completion, as opposed to a guy who still has that eye of the tiger, worried about proving himself.
Oh, Eye of the Tiger. Now that you
There you
said
go.
it for the millionth time, it makes sense.
Exactly.
No, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I wouldn't be surprised if they spent definitely less than 8 months on the final fight. And not in a bad way, but just I think Stallone doesn't have 8 months to spend on a single Rocky fight in his movie. He's making 3 other movies or something at the same time.
By the way, while we talk about the performances and how we love people, and and then we're talking about the photography shortcomings and stuff like that, I will point out that Mr. T, everybody knows the Golden Raspberry Awards, making fun of awards shows, supposed to talk about bad things. Mr. T was nominated as Worst New Star at the Golden Raspberry Awards, and that's the moment at which the Golden Raspberry Awards should have been destroyed forever. Because that's insane.
That's
Who
ridiculous.
watches this movie and is like, Mr. T, please, that's what doesn't work about this movie. Any other criticism I'll listen to, but you come at me and you're like, Mr. T is what sucks about this movie. Get out. I'm not even you're not even having a serious discussion with me, right? You're just talking crazy. Get
and
out of my
especially in
face.
hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, that first movie that totally launched his career,
Right.
Obviously wasn't very good because he became a megastar.
Yeah. Great call there, Golden Raspberries. Way to legitimize yourself with
Give
that
yourself
moment.
a raspberry.
Good call. Yeah.
All right. I am intrigued. I'm interested. I'm fascinated, and I'm anxious to figure out how many boxing gloves are we giving this film. Darren, I want to go with. You know what? No, John, I'm going to go with you first because we know you love this film, and you said it right off the top.
I do.
And last week you gave Rocky 2 a 4, and so I am interested to see what you give Rocky 3.
Rocky 3, I go back and forth on sometimes. This is one of the times where it lands squarely on the 4, and it is because the strength of the performances. I love Carl Weathers in this movie. I love Mr. T. I love what Sylvester Stallone is doing. I love that Talia Shire gets the speech. She gets the fire speech. Like, that's awesome. I love Eye of the Tiger. I love the use of montage. There are missteps. We talked about them. But I think that this is a strong entry. And the thing is, watching these again, you watch Rocky 3, and how many times do you watch a series and you watch the sequel and you say, okay, well, I guess I got to kind of, fudge along with it here. But this feels right. This feels like, okay, I buy this as Rocky's next chapter. I believe this movie. I believe this is what Rocky did and where he went, and I'm on board with it. And what's beautiful is, yet again, I would have accepted this as the last Rocky movie, but I was totally open at the end to the idea of another Rocky movie. The way that Stallone knows how to end this, I'll be happy either way. And let's just, let's see what the future holds. Now, we all know that the future holds something, and we'll get to that. But for me, this is 4 Mohawks. I'm giving this 4 Mohawks.
You're making me worried about Rocky 4, John.
You shouldn't. Don't worry about Rocky 4.
Don't worry.
Don't worry about
Don't
it.
worry.
Do not worry.
Okay.
This is so interesting because Stallone originally wanted 3 to be the ending of the franchise. He said it's a trilogy, 1, 2, 3, good. But 2 was so successful, and he had so much fun developing 3. But originally he wanted to have a fight in the Roman Colosseum, literally in the Roman Colosseum, in view of the Pope. And he once said if he had guts, he was going to kill off Rocky at the end of that fight. That's a very different movie than Rocky 3 that we got.
Sometimes it's you got to have the right person sitting in the room saying, Cool.
I mean, I'm just
Let me
thinking of
pose
the
this.
airfare to get back to LA for the training montage from Rome. That's quite a flight.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
All right,
You may
Darren,
not know this about me, Rocky, but I grew up in downtown Rome. Let me take you. Oh, Apollo, I didn't know that. Well, I guess with your name, it makes sense. Okay. Well, that's, you didn't know I'm actually from, yeah, no, that doesn't make
hilarious.
any sense.
Now, Darren, you do not give any half stars. You don't give any half gloves.
I
So-
try not to. It doesn't make sense in boxing.
So how many are you giving this motion picture?
Yeah, I too was kind of going between 3 and 4. On watching, I will say I kind of enjoyed 2 more. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean that 3 is a worse movie. And I think it's still amazing where you think of any franchise out there. There's very few that you can name where you're like, oh yeah, and then the third one, the story just kept going and it changed it up enough to tell us something new, and old villains returned, but they were good guys, and new villains arrived on the horizon. But it was really well done. And the more I watch Rocky, the more I'm like, man, this is such a unique saga of films. Like, there's nothing else that's really like it. It's still incredibly simple. It's just this guy from Philly who's a boxer. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's, worth 90 minutes of my time. But no, so I'm still giving this one a 4. I think this was still, he went the distance. He had the eye of the tiger, all those catchphrases. But no, I could totally see myself rewatching 2 and 3. Yeah, I enjoyed them. They were a lot of fun. Maybe I'll sprinkle in 1 with a 2. Not that 1's bad. I just need to see it again.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So giving it 4 boxing gloves, 2 for Mr. T and 2 for Rocky, and I'll just go at it.
I think this is a fantastic trilogy. I think it's a great trilogy that stands on its own. And this is the title fight trilogy. Because from 4 onward, it's not about the title. Spoiler alert. It's about other things.
Wait.
And
we have 5 minutes till I watch the next movie. No, I'm just kidding.
and so this could be self-contained if you wanted to, if you wanted it to be. And I gave 2 5 stars. I love Rocky 2. It so emotionally resonates with me. And I really like 3 as well. And I think it's a great, sometimes I'll watch Rocky 2 and 3 together. Sometimes I'll watch 1 and 2 together. But for me, I think the lack of emotional resonance, and because Mickey's death is so downplayed because of the other things, like John, you were talking about, I like this less than 2. I like out of the trilogy, this is my least favorite, but it's still a great movie. Like, I still really like it. I still really like watching it. But I think there's just a few things that just kind of take me out of it. And so I give it a 3.5, but it's a 3.5 that I really enjoy.
That's completely fair. And as we set the stage for the next one, I just want to make sure, because we'll hit on this at the beginning of the next episode as well. Okay, between Rocky 2 and Rocky 3, Stallone appeared in Nighthawks, which is a cute little underrated movie from the 80s. Messy ending, but pretty interesting stuff. And Victory, which I've never seen. And then Rocky 3 happens. Between Rocky 3, which is 1982, and Rocky 4, which is 85, almost 86. Between Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, there is First Blood, where Rambo is created. Staying Alive, John Travolta's sequel to Saturday Night Fever. Rhinestone with Dolly Parton. Rambo First Blood Part 2. Okay? 2 of those movies are insanely successful films. And he still comes back the next time for Rocky 4. So just bear that in mind when we come to Rocky 4, like where Stallone's career has just gotten even crazier over the top.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.